But the next thing I want to talk about is what allows the body to rotate. And in Tai Chi, we really like to say you use mind intent or yi and not muscular strength to move the body. So you're not supposed to be doing movements like a power lifter. You're supposed to be doing movements through intent with a relaxed frame. Unfortunately, that saying is really misunderstood a lot and it's misapplied a lot. And it gets to the point where people are saying you're not supposed to use muscular strength at all. Like you're not supposed to use your muscles. You're supposed to be like limp when you're doing Tai Chi. And that's how you avoid using muscular strength. And that's how you just use Yi and not Li or muscular strength when you're doing Tai Chi. Unfortunately, that's another misunderstanding in Tai Chi. It's not about being so relaxed and so opposed to using muscular strength that you go limp. The idea is not whether you use muscular strength, it is how you use muscular strength and whether you're using it just as individual muscles that are locking up and trying to do a lot of work on their own, or if you're doing it in a way that coordinates the entire body to function together as a single unit. So that gets the idea of silk pulling, which we'll get into at future videos. But it also ties into silk reeling, where everything should be tied together and there should be rotational motion that ties what's going on in the feet through the spiral that's going through the legs, through the connection at the sacrum, through the spiral that's going through the torso, and then eventually, as we'll talk about, spiraling going through the arms. And so you have this continuity of motion from the ground through the entire body, all the way to whatever technique it is that you're doing, whatever motion it is that you're doing. And it's done in a way where the body is as structured as possible. So your support column is aligned and all of your body is set up in a way where you can control your center of gravity as much as possible. So yes, you do use muscles to move in Tai Chi. It is not possible for you to move your body without using muscles. That's just how it is. If you don't believe me, all you have to do is look at the case of a nerve injury that damages the nerve supply to a muscle that no longer allows that muscle to contract. The person in that unfortunate situation would no longer be able to use that muscle to move the part of their body. Whether they're doing it in a relaxed manner or in a tense manner, it's not going to happen if there's not that connection allowing the muscle to function. So you do have to have muscular motion to get your body to move. And so what we want to do is understand how it is in Tai Chi that we use our muscles so that it fits in the Tai Chi framework. It fits in this idea of using Yi, not Li, or using intent and not muscular force to get emotion to be accomplished. So now let's take a quick look at the way muscle fibers run in the torso and get kind of an idea of how the body can support rotational motion through the torso. And again, this is purely from an anatomical perspective. This is not looking at the chi component or the energetic component. However, the two parallel really nicely. And I think if you can grasp this, then you will have a more functional approach to Tai Chi that will allow you to develop the Qi in the future. And we'll kind of tackle that as a separate subject in future videos. So something I want you to notice here in this image of the torso, these are again images from Gray's Anatomy, is that you have directionality of muscle fibers. So this is your pec major, you have your serratus anterior, and you have your external obliques. And you can see that all of these fibers are running essentially in a very similar, if not the same direction from their origin to their insertion, basically from where they start to where they finish. They're all going in a very similar direction. And if you were to look at the back of the body, you would notice that there's something very similar going on there. So you have directionality here, trap, at least the upper part of the trap's going this way. You have your lower part of the trap coming in here, lats coming in here. All of these muscles have directionality of some sort that's either working in the same direction or kind of crisscrossing with other muscle fibers. So if we come back up to these skeletons, we'll kind of talk this through a little bit. You'd have like external obliques coming this way. On the other side, you'd have internal obliques going that way. So it kind of continues that direction all the way across the body. You have fibers of your pec major, even your pec minor that are coming this way. And that also continues with internal obliques on this side. So you have like this wrap around the body. On the back, you would have something similar. You have muscle fibers running like this. And on the opposite side, muscle fibers running like this. And you have that on both sides. So you have this crisscross effect across the body, here and here. So it's basically like kind of an X. You have muscles stretching across the body this way and muscles stretching across the body this way on the front and on the back, kind of wrapping around the body in a way. So now let's think about what happens when this skeleton decides to turn left, like we've been talking about in previous videos. So we'll start at the feet. What happens when he goes this direction? So he's turning to his left. We have external rotation. on the right leg, internal rotation on the left leg. So you have the closing of the quad on the left, the opening of the quad on the right, which gives you from your lower dantian, transferring it down through the hip, have your rotation out here, going toward the pinky side of the foot or the large toe toward the center, however you want to think about it. And you have this internal rotation coming in here, back to the lower dantian. At the lower dantian in here, of course, this transfer is going more through the sacrum and through the low back, the yao, or through the waist. So this is your transfer point, basically, going through the waist, transferring that force or directing that force up to the rest of the body. If he's going to the left, he's going to have a spiral going around the spine, and that spiral should continue out through the arm. We'll talk more about that specifically in a little bit. But to get the spine to rotate, what has to happen is this wonderful skeleton person needs to contract certain muscles and relax certain muscles. So if we're looking at their back, what's going to happen when they turn to the left is this part of the body up on the left here, and this part of the body are going to get closer together. So there's going to be movement here, movement there. So that means muscles in this plane of motion need to contract together. Now, if we look at the opposite side, what's happening here and what's happening here is these parts of the body are going to get further away from each other, right? So he's turning to the left. That means his right shoulder is going more forward, which is moving it away from his left hip, which would be this hip. So it's moving away, and the hip is basically moving away. So you have a lengthening of the muscle fibers across this way and a shortening of muscle fibers across this way. You have the same thing going on in front. So he's turning to his left. What happens here is that the right shoulder is getting closer to the left hip. So you have shortening of the fibers going in this direction. You have like these sheets of muscle going across the body. So it's a large group of muscles working together to shorten or rotate the torso, shorten those fibers, rotate the torso to the left. And on the opposite, of course, this shoulder is moving away from this hip. So you have a lengthening of fibers that are running this way across the body. So far, I don't think we've covered anything particularly earth-shattering. I think most people that have a basic understanding of the movement of the body kind of already understand that this is what's going on, that there's large groups of muscles that work together and cause a complex motion to happen rather than depending on a single muscle to do all the work. But here's where we see how Tai Chi really starts to take advantage of this synergistic motion of the body through this rotation. Because if we think about this skeleton keeping straight up and down and just moving this direction without the rotation, well, he needs stabilizing muscles engaged through the core so that he doesn't just like flop over one way or the other. But basically, he's not taking advantage of the fact that all of these fibers running across the body this way can activate to add rotation to his motion. He's just changing himself from one spot to another. And so he loses taking advantage of all of those muscles working together. So rotation really allows a lot of muscles to get involved to a small degree to accomplish a big motion, rather than a few muscles being involved to a large degree to accomplish a motion. And this is where we can kind of start to understand the intent of using muscles, the yi that we want to use in Tai Chi, rather than the li or muscular force. That idea of muscular force, that li, is not really well explained as just muscular force. It's a particular kind of muscular force, and it's like a locking out kind of muscular force. So I think a better way to describe this li is to think of it as a maybe less intelligent way of using muscular force. And that's not to put down anyone that uses strength training as an exercise or anything like that. It's not talking about the intelligence of the person who's using the muscular force. It's talking about the ability for your use of muscular force to adapt to the situation. And so if you're using a few muscles locked up big time, they're not going to be able to change easily. If you are talking about using a larger group of muscles to work synergistically together, then each muscle has to do a little less work because large groups of muscles are working together, and you can accomplish a great deal of force production while still retaining the capacity to listen. And this is really where something like silk ruling is so important in Tai Chi, is because it's not just the rotational motion that's important, it's the synergy that that rotational motion creates in the function of the body that allows you to generate the force that makes silk ruling useful in any way. So let's talk a little bit more about that synergy and how it relates torso to the legs.